and welcome into the Half Point Mock Draft episode of the Fantasy 4-Pack. I'm your host, Ian Power, joined as always by Matt Vitale and Frankie Santiago. I apologize if my voice is a little off today. We're just coming back from a weekend away, so I got a little bit of... I forgot my allergy medicine at home. I got a little bit of the scratchies going on in my voice.
Still sweating the booze out.
Maybe,
I was here all weekend.
Maybe for you. I was getting murdered by pollen this weekend. Just absolutely laid out. But that's neither here nor there.
Or anywhere.
Sure. Before we dive into the mock draft itself, a little bit of news to run through. Melvin Gordon has a groin and did not practice. Justin Jefferson's shoulder was a limited participant today. DeAndre Swift, although he did not practice today, is expected to return to practice tomorrow. This is kind of a weird one because we're filming this as of 9:08 p.m. on 8/16, and the only notes that I saw for Dak were Dak is expected to practice today. You would think that somebody would know if he did or not by this point, but maybe the Cowboys have some weird midnight practice today. I don't know. But I mean, if he's expected to practice, then great. That means Dak should be a full go by this time the season starts.
Why can't I 100% picture that Jerry would run like some glow-in-the-dark practice to draw fans in with like a glow-up football and they're like wearing like neon jerseys?
Listen, maybe they spent the day in Cabo or wherever the hell Zeke was last year, and they're coming back and they want to get some practice in.
Also, I now want this. I want this as like a preseason game, just like a glow-in-the-dark football game.
The lights are off.
Yeah, lights are off.
That sounds terrible. They should probably never do that.
Safety-wise, terrible. Watching-wise, be pretty fun.
I do not want any players that I care about for football to be in a game like that, so I'm going to disagree here. Sorry.
It'll be preseason game 3 then.
Curtis Samuel was activated from the PUP list today. Aaron Jones was a limited participant in practice today. That makes sense. Aaron Jones was a limited participant in practice because the practice happened. How are there no notes on that? Zach Moss was on the field for practice, participating in team drills. Obviously, he had a hamstring, so him being back in the field so soon, you have to assume the hamstring's pretty minor, right? And then Jonnu Smith, unfortunately, suffered. Jonnu Smith suffered an ankle sprain. Not expected to be serious, though, the team says. It sounds like he got a little nicked up. He should be raring and ready to go sooner rather than later, I hope. Because we do not need 2 injured tight ends.
You mean 3?
We is a strong word.
Oh, no, we only have 2.
You guys only have 2.
Dalton disrespect is getting real up in here.
Yes, I do not count any of the other tight ends we have on our roster as tight ends that are relevant for fantasy or football purposes.
Hey, they were drafted in the 3rd round, him and Devin Asiasi. Those are legit tight ends.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they weren't thrown to last year.
At all. By anyone.
Or even thrown around. No. That's all the news that I had. Did you guys have anything that I didn't mention?
No.
No, it's pretty clear skies for me, I guess. I don't know what to say.
I can tell. That has nothing to do with injuries. But I'm glad it's clear skies for you, Frankie.
Hey, the weather was beautiful today.
You didn't get banged up walking back from Dunkin' Donuts?
You know what? That's what I do have to say. It's beautiful out today.
Sure.
It's a beautiful day to talk fantasy football. And a beautiful day to, prep for the season.
Sure.
Beautiful night, but sure.
Before we get this mock draft started, follow us on socials, hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell. If you like the content we're bringing to you, that's how you find out exactly when more of it drops. And more of the content is always better. It's the time of year where you can never consume too much information. Helps you really nail your decisions down and figure out what players you're in on, which players you're out on. So make sure to hit that so you're staying abreast of all of our musings and general football-related thoughts. Let's get this mock draft started.
Yeah.
So I'm picking out of the 6th spot today. Vitali's picking out of the 2, and Frankie's picking out of the 11. Our idea with this was to try and give you guys, a look at what a early round draft strategy would look like, a mid round draft strategy, or a early pick, mid pick, and late pick. And
Wow.
Curious.
okay, Derrick Henry went. I don't think you're going to see that often.
Nope.
So I'm gonna
Can you
try-
manually change that, Frankie?
I can. I think so. Well, let's see.
Because while that technically could happen, I
I don't
feel
think it'll affect too much because I don't think it's not like the top two guys are going to fall to you there.
let's just leave it. Because
I already changed it. So
for the vast majority of our viewers, Christian McCaffrey or Dalvin Cook is going to be the 1-1. While I love Derrick Henry and the talent and skill set that he brings to the table, I don't think he really has a case to go at 1.
Go ahead and roll it. Yeah, I completely agree, and that's why this is just a no-brainer pick for me. I'll just take Dalvin and be happy with it. I mean, he's got
So at 2, you're not thinking about Kamara over Dalvin at all?
Nope. There's more question marks with Kamara as much as I like him. Whereas Dalvin is seeming to get over this injury bug that's plagued him in his earlier years, and now he's got an older Thielen. He's got a Justin Jefferson who's a little nicked up. So that could all spell for heavy usage in the beginning, which is something we really pride ourselves on. Getting is get those early W's, and he looks like he could be someone who could really feast in the first few weeks.
Fair. I mean, it's hard to go wrong either way. I'm not you really used to picking at 6, and I have a tough decision here because
Tough decision.
I got Nick Chubb staring at me. But I'm gonna go with Zeke here because I just like I think that the Zeke hate has gone a little bit too far, and being able to get a guy like Zeke at 1-6 seems really valuable to me. So I will lock that in all day. But if Zeke hadn't been there, Nick Chubb would have been the clear pick for me there.
I think this is an easy one for you. I mean, knowing you at least, unless you're gonna get
Stephon Diggs.
no, I think I might actually go and see how I do talking about the strategy that I was preaching last episode.
So you're gonna try out the tight end first?
Yeah, if you haven't also checked out our last episode, guy, it's gonna be right up here. Or I guess my screen's not the same anymore, but
No,
it's gonna be at the top of the screen.
Now, how much do you cry if this guy goes running back, and takes both?
Uh,
Luckily, he didn't.
And he's not gonna pick up the guy that I actually want to get here, which is Mr.
didn't want
Najee
Aaron
Harris.
Jones?
No.
Oh, a little surprise there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm super big on Najee this year. I mean, we've talked about how much volume he's going to get in that offense and how... I mean, Aaron Jones would have been nice, but there was no way he was going to fall to me with where he was. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess he could have, but...
No, Aaron Jones is almost always going to be a first-round running back. If he falls to you in the second round, it's a fluke. Like that's... You cannot rely on something like that happening in your draft, so you should prepare like it's not going to. So for me here, I was hoping that either Eckler or Mixon was going to make it back to my pick. Neither of them did. So I am going to pivot, because I really like going running back this year. But not with the guys that are on the board right now. I'd have to really reach for a guy that I want or take a guy that I don't believe in, which in Antonio Gibson. So, because we were just talking about this in our early round pick episode, I think Calvin Ridley is one of the only wide receivers in football this year that has legit number 1 upside. I'll take Calvin Ridley at 2.7, give myself the shot at having the number 1 running back and the number 1 wide receiver, and try and address running back in the 3rd round.
Mm-hmm. A lot of good running backs just went off the board, and I am not a huge fan of one.
Yeah, I bet you were hoping for Clyde to make it to you, weren't you?
Clyde, I probably also taken Gibson. That's why I was hoping that someone would bite on Mahomes or
Gibson's
Kittle.
a little bit better value at your pick than mine.
Yeah. I feel like
Dobbins is still there. He's not bad at the 2.11.
I'm honestly,
You also could get Justin Jefferson here because he's not likely to be on the board at 3.2.
Yeah, he's not. So honestly, I'm also gonna try a early tight end strategy and take Kittle here because I'm liking the connection he's having with Trey Lance and just.
So I wanna cut you off for a second just to talk about what the computer just did for Team 1. Because this is something that you could see in leagues this year, but it's not something I don't know about you guys, but I never advocate for this. Mm-hmm. If you're going early tight end or early quarterback, you can't do both because we're gonna see at the end of the draft. I would bet you guys real money right now that Team 1 is gonna end up having some holes on it because he spent 2 high picks on a tight end and a quarterback.
So here, I'm going to go ahead and just take David Montgomery to give myself at least 2 backs coming out of the first 3 rounds and basically treat Kittle as the wide receiver that I took.
I was hoping Dave Montgomery was going to make it to me, but there are other guys in this range that I am a big fan of if he doesn't. So right now, I'm thinking about either just locking up Keenan Allen and getting myself 2 really good wide receivers to pair with Zeke, or Chris Carson is still on the board.
So is A-Rob, if you're a believer in him.
I'm not. Oh, you mean Allen Robinson?
Yeah.
Yeah, I am, but I'd rather
I
have.
was like, did you watch the last episode?
I'd rather have Keenan Allen because I think the upside is better.
Sure.
Because they both present a similar target ceiling, but I think that the Chargers are going to have to throw more because their defense is worse and their quarterback is better.
I mean, that's debatable. You still have Bosa there and a lot of talent.
Yeah, but the Bears had a top 10 defense in the league last year. I don't remember exactly where they ranked, but the Bears were objectively better than the Chargers last year.
Yeah.
So I ended up taking Chris Carson because while I would like to have because that'd be a great duo to have paired up there, but I was just looking at the running backs that are still on the board, and they've disappeared very quick in this draft. And to me, they become noticeably less reliable after Chris Carson goes off the board.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt. Whereas, if I was at your pick, I would have done the same thing because yes, you can have a great duo with Keenan and Ridley, but you can also get a great duo or even trio later in the draft in the 5th, 6th, 7th round with the guys like Deontay Johnson and just to slide down T. Higgins.
Sure, no, it's very easy to sort of make up lost ground at wide receiver this year. It's harder to do it at running back.
Yes. Yeah, and that's why I'm not going to pick Josh Jacobs here, but I am going to pick up Miles Sanders as my second running back. And then on the wraparound, again, warming on CD Lamb. I don't know.
But if you can get CD in the 4th round, that's fine value.
Yeah.
I'm basically looking for upside here because Robert Woods is still on the board, and again he's kind of going a little bit further back, but I like the floor there.
So I will say, in my opinion, the best Cowboys receiver to draft is whichever one is going later, because I don't see a huge difference between the two of them.
Yeah, let's look at the numbers from last year.
So you might as well take the discount and draft whichever one is going cheaper.
Yeah.
All right, so it is back to my pick. Picks the picks in between Frankie and I: Amari Cooper, Julio Jones, Josh Jacobs, Kyler Murray. I am probably looking at a wide receiver here. There's a lot of the pseudo elites are on the board, and I don't love the running backs in this range. Pretty much the only running back in this range I'd be considering is Travis Etienne, but I think that Jaguars team's going to have a lot of it, because they picked a running back instead of, an offensive lineman or an important defensive player or anything. They're going to have enough issues this season that I don't know if I can trust Etienne in the 4th round.
Yeah, and as I've seen, I can't remember exactly where I pulled the stat, but 5th round running backs fit this kind of back of the 4th, 5th round running back has a terrible hit rate.
To be fair, Etienne is probably going to be the guy, and he's probably going to, like Jonathan Taylor last year, he's probably going to win you some weeks, but it's likely to be later in the season. Mm-hmm. Anyone who drafted J.K. Dobbins or Jonathan Taylor last year, and Taylor gave you more value than Dobbins did, but anyone who drafted those guys last year, they really paid off for you in the final 5 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
And I, as much as I would love to have Etienne on my team from Jump Street, so I don't have to try and finagle him onto my team later, the 4th round is just, even the 5th round is just too steep a price to pay for a guy that might not contribute in the first half of the year.
Yeah, I would rather.
I'll take Chris Godwin there, lock up what I believe is Tom Brady's number 1 target, and move on and be a happy man.
Yeah, a guy who went right after your pick, Myles Gaskin, we were just talking about him earlier today. The Dolphins just came out and said that they want to use a 3 running back committee. I was already cool. I was already very, very cool on Gaskin, and that just made it worse.
Yeah, I have no interest in Gaskin. Seemed like a smokescreen last year, and now the Dolphins seem like they're doing everything they can to not have to use him. I have no interest
There's
in Myles
just,
Gaskin.
in general, in that offense, there's so many mouths to feed on that team now. Like between Fuller, Parker, Gesicki, all three running backs apparently. And, I mean, I think Tua is probably going to take a step forward, but he's not going to take a step forward where he can feed an entire offense. And that is a lot of tight ends off the board.
Yeah, and just to simply talk about my 2 picks right there, I just went DJ Moore into Cooper Kupp just to give myself some wide receiver depth. I think the only question I had there, I knew DJ Moore was going to be the pick just because he was the highest guy, and I didn't want to let him slip. The second receiver was who I was waffling on between Kupp and Deontay Johnson, who was a little bit of a reach there, but I knew he's probably not coming back to me.
Oh, definitely not.
So I went with Kupp.
If Kupp was still on the board of my pick, then I would be picking Kupp here.
Right. So I went with Kupp to just lock in some touchdown upside where DJ Moore kind of struggles with that.
Mm-hmm.
So
for me right here,
tight end run.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was. This is generally where if I'm in these middle round picks, where I often am, this is generally where I take Mark Andrews. Obviously, he went off the board 2 picks ahead of me, so I'm not taking Mark Andrews here because that is impossible. So I'm gonna do a little pivot ski and just grab Deontay Johnson. Keep getting some target monsters. The other running backs that I like are going a little bit later, so I'm probably gonna look at taking a running back in the 6th round. And that gives me 3 very, very highly targeted, very reliable wide receivers, all of whom come with a good bit. Like they're not just target hogs. They also have solid upside to try and get me those week winning totals.
Yeah.
Frankie, what are you looking at here at 5'11"?
I'm probably gonna. Oh, I'm gonna start with a receiver. I'm gonna pick up Jamar Chase here, and I'm kind of torn at this point because this is typically the point in drafts where I usually have my 2 running backs, at least 2 wide receivers, and that round 1 slot's usually a toss-up between the 2. And I don't really... I guess it depends where my draft is looking at how the rest of the draft has panned out. I think I'm going to go running back here, and I think I am going to pick... no, I lied. I'm going to do something else that I don't really condone a lot personally, but I am going to go for a stack and redraft. And I am going to pick Dak here. And again, this is me just experimenting more with things that I don't like to see if they can possibly work. I do think that, what you talked about before, paying that, first or, paying your 2nd and 3rd round for both tight end and quarterback is too steep for me. But if it's a 1st and a 6th, it's a little bit different because you have that kind of floor, and I won't really call it depth because, you have most of your core. But it's different if you're spending a 1st and a 6th versus a 2nd and a 3rd, in my opinion.
Sure. All right, so at 6-7 here, there are still some running backs that I think I can wait on until 7-6, and there's enough of them here that I'm not rushing to grab any of them.
I played the game and see if I could try and get. There's a couple players like Chase Claypool. I was hoping maybe fall back to me, so I could take him in the 8th.
Sure.
Chase Edmonds was one I was really targeting right there, to give me a 3rd running back in the 6th. But
no, I'm gonna do a pure upside target here, and I'm gonna go after Michael Thomas. I've already got 3 wide receivers locked up, so I don't have to rely on him at all, and. He's a guy who's going in the 6th round right now because of injury, but when he comes back, he could very easily just go back to being Michael Thomas, which would be huge for me because that means that in most weeks, my starting lineup is Ezekiel Elliott, Chris Carson, Calvin Ridley, Chris Godwin, Deontay Johnson, and then Michael Thomas, my flex. Like that's a nasty starting lineup to have to go up against. So I'm happy taking Mike Thomas there. Seeing as I drafted the protection earlier on.
Not a huge fan of a lot of these picks because there's a couple, I like Ayuk here. I already have Kittle. I don't want to double that up. I also like, I think Robbie Anderson's a solid pick, but then I also have DJ Moore. So it's I feel like I'm having to kind of weed through some picks here. I think I want to get some running back depth here. I will go ahead and take a gamble that Melvin Gordon's actually going to be good to go for the season. good reason why to draft later in the preseason, so you can wait and see where the health of these guys are going. So this groin injury could be major, could be minor for Melvin, but with his him being older, I'm not going to go ahead and trust that he's there, and I'm actually going to go ahead from him right into Damian Harris. So I have two guys there that are a little bit on the risky side, but I think one of them should be able to pay out.
Sure.
And give me a good flex play to bounce back and forth on.
Sure. Damian Harris is one of the guys that I was looking at, but with him off the board, I'll take Ronald Jones here.
Yep.
He's the back that I believe in Tampa. I'm not terribly worried about loading up on, one team's skill position players. Even especially because it's only a wide receiver and a running back. They don't really cannibalize each other too much.
Yeah.
And we've seen Ronald Jones have explosive upside. If he ends up, winning that job, if Leonard Fournette gets hurt, or if he just has week in, week out flex value, that's really all I need out of a guy like Ronald Jones.
Right, and just to kind of talk back to like running back and wide receiver, that's fine. Wide receiver, tight end, wide receiver. I think that you're limiting your upside, especially with teams like Carolina and San Fran, where they're not prone to throw. Like San Fran more so, but like they're not high touchdown teams. Like they're not high scoring teams where you can see a lot of touchdowns in a single week. So it might only be one passing touchdown. Yes, you have a better chance of getting it on your team.
Yeah.
But now you're guaranteed a 0 at one of them for touchdowns at least.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Frankie, what are you looking at here at 7-11?
I'm going to pick up my third running back here. I'm just going to pick up Trey Sermon. We know how much San Francisco runs the ball.
He's another one who I'm worried might not see a ton of work until later in the season because even though I really like what Trey Sermon brings to the table, I don't know if he's going to take the job out from under Raheem Mostert. So I think we're waiting for the inevitable Raheem Mostert injury with Trey Sermon.
Yeah, the thing about drafting him there, too, is he's not... I mean, based on what my team looks like right now, he's at the best of flex because, obviously, Sanders and Harris are going to be my 1-2.
Sure.
So it's not even that I need to rely on him. So I like that a lot, especially with the late season upside. I mean, we saw it last year with Dobbins and all those other guys. And I am going to, take a gamble here myself again on the best receiver in Philly. And I am going to pick Devonta Smith here.
You're loading up on those rookies there, Frankie.
I am.
I mean, it's not a bad stretch. At least recent history has shown that some of the rookies are going to boom. So if you're just drafting all of them,
Have the boom.
I got to hit something.
I don't necessarily condone it because you might end up dropping a lot of players, but at least you're picking up guys like Chase and Smith who are, on the more likely to boom than bust side of the spectrum, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, Smith is purely just from a talent standpoint, and just, he's the guy in Philly already, and he hasn't played a game yet.
Smith in the 8th, I don't hate that just because it's cheap enough where if I'm building around it and I've got picks to play with, yeah, sure, I'll go ahead and grab him.
Sure. So 8-7 for me, not too much thinking that goes into it. I don't love how fast quarterbacks are going off the board in this mock draft, and I didn't want to miss out on my guy, so I spent an 8th round pick to lock up Tannehill in the off chance that in this next little run of picks there was like 3 more quarterbacks to go off the board, and I don't know how likely it was, but I feel pretty comfortable with this team right now. I don't want to risk missing on a guy that I think is a week in, week out starter because I tried to get cute with it.
Right. So good thing for just a tip for when you're drafting on the corners here. I'm going to need a quarterback, so I have one cited. I'm probably going to end up taking Matt Stafford.
Would you have taken Tannehill here if he was still there?
Potentially, but either way, what I'm kind of pointing out is that Team 1 already has Patrick Mahomes. So,
oh, yes.
There's a good chance he's not doubling up on quarterbacks here with his need of, just getting more depth for his team elsewhere. It doesn't make too much sense to go there.
Sure.
So I'm going to go ahead and go elsewhere and just get myself... Oh, do I want to go upside or floor? That's the big question.
I know you're looking at Zach Moss there.
I am, but I Zach Moss, Michael Carter, I'm like fine with them down here. But if I didn't just take Melvin Gordon, Damian Harris, I'm looking past them. I'm actually looking at Jarvis Landry. I'm going to go ahead and take him.
Okay.
I think he's in a great offense, and he's a very great floor play. So for this late, just a plug and play.
Not
starter.
to mention he's the number one for Baker.
Right, you can believe that, but I still think it's OBJ just based on talent, but you know what? If I'm wrong, Jarvis Landry's going to get a bunch of targets in a very good offense.
Sure.
So now, like I said, as I predicted, he'll go with wide receiver, running back, some kind of combo for depth, and Stafford will fall back to me. So no reason to take Stafford with my 8-11. I can wait till 9-2.
All right, I'm going to get myself a share of Chargers here, grab myself a little Mike Williams, and I guess I'm glad I did take Tannehill too, because there was actually a run of quarterbacks before my pick as teams started doubling up. Tannehill easily could have gone in that range. We'll never know now, but I am not going to, be upset that I spent that pick to lock up Tannehill, although I would have liked to get Fuller onto my squad. Frankie, what are you looking at 9-11 here?
I'm kind of just looking at, this is another range I don't particularly like drafting how I drafted this draft, because it's typically where I take my quarterbacks.
Yeah, but I mean, fortunately,
Dak Prescott should score you a lot of points.
Yeah, I mean, the 9th round is when you can kind of start taking shots in the dark at players, guys that are lower chances of success.
Well, I'm gonna get another running back here. I am gonna pick up Mr. Quadzilla. We did see that the Packers can, not support fully to the, ceiling 2 running backs, but we've seen how they split runs before as someone who has owned both Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones.
I mean, I think the upside for AJ Dillon is that we've seen Aaron Jones be banged up before, and if Aaron Jones has to miss time, AJ Dillon easily could step into a workhorse role for the Packers.
I mean, last year we saw with Jamal Williams, Aaron Jones for some reason was missing time, even though he said he was healthy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then as far as my next pick goes, looking at wide receivers, I'm going to take probably another shot in the dark here, and I'm going to pick up Darnell Mooney. Fields has looked good as far as, that Chicago offense. It's pretty much Allen Robinson. Jimmy Graham's still there, but I would probably put him as the number 2 on the team since Anthony Miller's no longer there. And,
sure.
Even if Anthony Miller was there, we've seen what he is. He's not really a factor.
He's actively not a factor in football right now.
Yes.
He's dealing with a shoulder injury.
Yeah.
And he's on the Texans. So even if he wasn't dealing with a shoulder injury.
So he's ending his career.
Yes, pretty much, unfortunately. Sad to see a promising young receiver like him go by the wayside, but...
It is truly unfortunate.
I want to pick another Buccaneer here, but I shouldn't.
I had the same issue with Cowboys last pick because I looked at Gallup and I was like, I should, Gallup's probably got a high ceiling, but I already have CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, I'm looking at Rob Gronkowski here because I think he's probably one of the best tight ends left in this draft. I'm gonna ignore him and go try and get me some more depth at the positions that I've been bouncing back and forth. I think I'm going to take a shot at Henry Ruggs here. I did draft very safe with my wide receivers early, and it's not out of the realm of possibility that Henry Ruggs has a strong sophomore campaign. He's a big play receiver, or at least that's what he was billed as when he was coming into the league. And if he flames out, I'll just drop him. I don't really care. But him and Mike Williams both have that big play potential. It's just for Ruggs, can he put it all together on the field? And for Williams, can he stay healthy?
I was going to tell you to pick Ruggs.
Yeah, here I'm actually going to go ahead and do basically the same thing with a pair of wide receivers. I think I can get both of them. So I'm going to go ahead and take Moore from the Jets, even though he's got that little injury. But
you're not worried about the injury bug?
That's why I'm going to take 2 of them.
Sure.
So I'm taking him for that pure upside there. A lot of people have been talking about his talent, and it's certainly showing in his price climbing into the 10th. But I'm going to go ahead and take another guy that we've all liked, Mr. Russell Gage.
And I don't know what Russell Gage's real upside is, but I think that he probably has a much safer floor than people are giving him credit for. And I'd say he probably has low end top 24 upside.
The fact that he's going in the 11th and 12th is kind of absurd. Because if you just look at how other receivers are ranked, usually it's the 1 and 2 on the teams going kind of not in similar range with obviously the guys like Adams and then whoever the hell's behind him.
Yeah.
But it's kind of, I guess, I mean, I'm not going to talk his price up. I'll take him at this range.
Right. I think, like I said, I'm being realistic. Where I think he should be able to be a wide receiver 3 easily in
Sure.
most redraft leagues. So, and then on top of that, when you look at the Falcons' history, granted Matt Ryan is on the older side, but they've always been able to very easily support 2 wide receivers.
No, yeah, it's like I think that's the biggest thing for me for why I'm not really seeing the disconnect between what the Falcons have done historically year in, year out and Russell Gage's price, because everything says he should be at least a usable fantasy asset. But people are drafting him like he might be on waivers by like week 2. And I just don't like, what have we seen from the Falcons that suggests that they are going to throw so little that they aren't going to be able to support 2 wide receivers? I think it's, I mean, unless you think that Kyle Pitts is just going to get so much volume that Russell Gage doesn't exist.
Right. I think the only logical argument I could hear is Kyle Pitts and Hurst get a bunch of volume instead of the wide receiver position. And 2, it is tough. Like, when you look back at them supporting 2 wide receivers, they're Hall of Fame wide receivers.
Sure, but the Falcons defense hasn't gotten any better. Mm-hmm. Matt Ryan is still there. They did acquire Kyle. I don't know. I just like, I don't see the Falcons throwing that much less because they're still gonna suck.
Yeah, their defense didn't get any better. So
Yeah.
It's right here. I am gonna grab another running back. I'm just gonna pick up Philip Lindsay here.
Sure.
David Johnson's old. He's probably on his way out of, football.
No, I don't hate the Philip Lindsay shot at 11 because like bad running backs can still be good on good teams as long as they're the guy, or at least pretty close to the guy. He's more or less game script proof. He catches balls very proficiently. He's quick between the tackles. So he's gonna get work in losing game scripts and in winning game scripts.
I mean, we've seen him split time with Melvin Gordon before too, and I mean, at this point in his career, I think him splitting time with David Johnson is going to be better for him.
If he ends up splitting time, he's a drop candidate for me because the Texans are going to be bad. So if he's not getting 100% of the, or 70% of the Texans' workload, then I don't want him because he's not gonna give you enough value to make him worth putting in your lineup. He's gonna eat a bench spot for you.
Yeah, he's somebody that it's gonna be tough to drop him because I feel like he's gonna be like that week 10 pickup when David Johnson goes down.
Sure.
And you're like, well, Philip Lindsay time. Let's go.
I mean, we talked about it a little bit before last episode, where it's like you can't. I mean, basically what happened with me and Jeff Jefferson, you can't live on those things. It's sometimes it happens. Sometimes you take these guys.
No, I mean, except this is much easier than Justin Jefferson.
All right,
Who are you picking here, Frankie?
I'm going to pick up Nelson Aguilar here. He's probably not going to be the Patriots' number 1 in targets, but he's probably going to be their number 1 receiver. And again, this is in the 12th round, so I'm not really,
All right, I can breathe a
these
sigh
guys.
of relief. Adam Troutman made it back to me at 12-7. I was gambling a little bit there.
You were. I realized I was like, wait, he didn't draft Rob Gronkowski
I did not.
because he went right after the pick that you decided to gamble.
I was thinking about taking Troutman where I took Williams, but I liked Jamal Williams at 11-6 a little bit more. He gave me running back depth, and I was like, you know what? Let's roll the dice. If Troutman doesn't fall back to me, Jonnu, Gerald Everett, and Jared Cook are all still on the board, so there's still plenty of guys to grab. But I do think I like Troutman more than them at this point in the preseason, just because, as we've talked about with Alvin Kamara, someone has to catch the football out there. Probably going to be him because they don't have anyone else on the roster. But Taylor, what are you looking at here? Yours.
So I was.
Yes, technically they have people on the roster, Frankie.
I was looking ideally for a running back, but I think I can wait for that guy for the last round because that's
Sure.
usually where it goes. So I just went with another upside play for wide receiver with Amon-Ra St. Brown. And because I kind of have looked through the defenses, my favorite defense to draft right now is the Niners. So I'm going to go ahead and take them right here because they're both a great defense and 2 have a really good matchup to start their season.
Sure, I don't hate that.
Yeah, they get Detroit to start. So, yeah, I feel like that's going to be a pretty easy one for them, even though it's an away game. But what are you looking at here? 2 rounds left.
It's tough. I was hoping Amon-Ra St. Brown would fall to me at 13-6 because he's a sleeper I've been, he's a rookie that I'm a big fan of. I'd like to have him end up on my rosters more often than not. I'm looking at the running backs here. There's no one that I want to waste a pick on, and there's maybe Chuba Hubbard, but that's just a speculatory pick if Christian McCaffrey were to go down. I'm probably just gonna lock up a defense here that I believe in and just kind of move on.
As far as
go ahead, Frankie.
I was gonna say, as far as Chuba goes, if I'm drafting a running back in this range, that's pretty much who I'm looking at, and that's it. Because we've talked about so many times this year how running back just dries up. The only one that you're really gonna get at the back of the draft that's gonna be of any use, maybe, is gonna be him.
Yeah, no, I'm just gonna lock up, kind of like what you did, Vitale. I'm gonna lock up the Patriots defense. They get Miami week 1, and Miami looks scary on paper, but this Patriots defense upgraded big time over the offseason. And, Miami's not going to have Will Fuller there week 1. We don't actually know if Tua is that good yet. I could easily see this being a game where, Miami's favored, but the Patriots win on the backs of their defense. So yeah, I'll roll the dice there on what I think should be a pretty good matchup for him.
Yeah, I wanted to go check because if it was in Miami, I would favor the Dolphins because that's even regardless of how the Dolphins have played, they've always played as tough when they're at home.
Yes, it is at home.
Yeah, so it's at home for the Patriots, which the Patriots are one of the best home teams out there right now. And on top of that, it's just like Bill does very well with young quarterbacks. They have a terrible record against him.
Yeah, like I said, he's a really good defensive coach. And like I said, I think that this defense is kind of being slept on a little bit because it wasn't what it was last year. Part of that was because they were gassed because we had no offense. And like now we have a lot of those same players coming back. All of our COVID guys are coming back. And we signed a couple impact players in the offseason. Like I think the Patriots are a sneaky top 5 defense this season.
Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and take the Rams defense there because, they're pretty safe floor pay as far as defenses go.
Sure.
And I think that the main thing for why they're a better defense this year than last year, even though nothing's really...
Quarterback play.
It's going to be their offense is actually going to be able to do things, and they're not going to be relying on Jared Goff. They're going to be relying on Matt Stafford.
I don't think that... that might be a slight bump for them, but it's not enough for me to really change my outlook on them. Because Goff was at least serviceable. He wasn't so bad that he was hurting. Like he wasn't Cam Newton from last year, where he literally couldn't move the ball forward.
Well, for me. It's not that they're a bad defense going into becoming a good defense. They're a good defense that's going to get kind of a load off because their offense is actually going to do things now. Sure,
but I'm just saying. I think that's maybe a tiebreaker for them, but it doesn't really change how I view them.
Yeah.
And with my last pick, I'm going to pick Rondale Moore here. That offense is going to run a lot of plays, and
just counting on him potentially being the guy who turns into the number 2 on the team.
I'm just collecting all the rookies at this point.
Once again, he's a good one to collect, and he's also a really easy one to drop because you're going to know very quickly into the season if Rondale Moore is that number 2. Like someone is going to evolve into that role. I'm going to take a rookie here as well. I'm going to take Terrace Marshall. He's looking like he's coming for Robbie Anderson's job. Kid looks very talented from what I've seen so far in training camp. I'll take a shot at him at 14-7. See if there's anything there, or worst case scenario, I'm just kicking tires and he gets dropped to the waiver wire very quickly.
Yep, same thing for me. I went with Quadri Olison, backup for the Falcons. He was held out of their preseason game, which, while yes, you want to see him play, but he was also held out with a starter, so it's a good sign that they want to keep him fresh. And Mike Davis could do the disappearing act that so many journeyman running backs have done before.
Oh, I am so out on Mike Davis, dude.
Yeah.
I am so out on Mike Davis.
So he's one where it's so minimal investment to just grab a guy who could who could steal the job quickly. But once again, he's also a guy I don't care if I have to drop him.
So Vitale and Frankie, you guys both went early tight end this draft. How do you guys feel about your teams?
I actually really like my team the way it turned out.
So if I have to kind of go through, I like my wide receivers. I got 2 guys that I think can carry the position for me, and then some other guys that provide floor and some pop potential. I liked getting Stafford where I took him. I like to get him later, but
Sure.
as you were talking about, the run on quarterbacks could happen even with most other teams having quarterbacks. So
Yeah, because
I was kinda
some people
forced.
like to draft 2 quarterbacks.
Right. So I knew I had to take him there, and I could just gamble that the guy with Pat Mahomes, wasn't going to take another one. So I would have liked a better third running back than the duo of Melvin and Damian, but that's just kind of how it went. So when I saw both of them there at the 6 and the 7, I was just like, I have to lock them up. Like that's when you're on the corners, that's how you have to have the mindset of, is just like, this is what I want. I'm going to go lock it up.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I'm not a fan of for my team is that because I've drafted out of these middle picks a lot, but I don't love my running back situation. Outside of Zeke, it is a little fragile. Chris Carson has been on and off the field. Ronald Jones is not the guaranteed guy. Jamal Williams is probably not going to be the guy unless DeAndre Swift goes down. So like I am potentially thin at running back. But at the same time, this is a team that has a lot of talent on it if things go right for it. So I'm not broken up about how this one ended. I don't think I'd be thrilled if this is the team I left to draft with. But
yeah, I think that, just looking at your team and knowing how you draft, I think that you'd probably want to have more, I guess maybe probably one more running back at least. That's going to be a little bit more less question marks, more safety.
Sure.
Me, that's why so I went Travis Kelce first, obviously. And instead of going, wide receiver, running back, or running back, wide receiver, I felt like I had to double up on those running backs early so I could chase the upside with the wide. Because honestly, I know we joke a lot about me taking rookies, but I do like a lot of the upside that these guys present. And these are actually guys that I'm looking at drafting out of where I'm drafting out of in our main league. And it's, Lindsey, Dillon, Sermon, they're fine. But I think that just having that extra back to, be kind of there helps a lot.
Sure.
Yeah, I think the one thing too, when I was deciding whether to take Kittle, because I wasn't going into this being like, oh, what if let's do a Kittle draft.
Yeah.
I was more just like, what's there, and I felt like he was the best advantage to gave my team. Like I wanted a second running back there to Edwards, Gibson potentially, probably Edwards more so than Gibson, and then pair him with a third running back.
Sure.
So when I was looking at it, yes, I could have probably gone Dobbins into Montgomery or something like that, but Dobbins, him splitting work with Gus Edwards is kind of shaking me off of him, and I feel like his price is a little too high for that.
Now, do you think you would like your team better if you had drafted Justin Jefferson and then got David Montgomery? Or Allen Robinson and then got David Montgomery?
I think no. I like the upside that Justin Jefferson has. He's a little expensive, I feel like.
Sure.
But I think I got enough wide receiver depth that I feel comfortable with that position. And then,
Okay.
like I said, I feel like George Kittle is going to have a nice bounce back this year.
Okay, fair enough. Well, that'll do it for our Half Point PPR episode. Join us next week when we bring you guys our Full Point episode, and join us later this week as we bring you another one in our favorite draft selections series. We'll be doing our mid-round picks later this week, so keep an eye out for that. Until then, we'll see you guys next time.